Welcome to the Mean Lady Talking Podcast. This is the podcast that tackles tough questions about relationships, life, love, and loss. It may not be the advice you want, but is probably the advice you need. And now here's your host, grief therapist, motivational speaker, relationship expert, best-selling author, and attorney, the not really mean lady herself, Susan J. Elliott.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Mean Lady Talking Podcast. My name is Susan Elliott, and I am the host of the Mean Lady Talking Podcast, and I explain the origins of the name and how we came to be and what's going on. So like I promised, Friday's show is going to be questions from the questions post or mail we get mail. I did have a question from someone who sent me an email and said, is the new podcast going to deal with some legal issues? On the videos that I have on YouTube, and the videos are www.youtube.com/user/getting past your past. So that's the channel. And on that channel, I have Relationship Court. And I talk about things like when you're breaking a lease because you're breaking up, and what do you do with somebody's belongings, and they say, you know, you should come and get them within 72 hours, I'm going to throw them out or whatever. I can give you legal information. There is no relationship, no attorney-client relationship between me and any of the podcast listeners. So nothing that I say on the podcast is going to be legal advice. It's going to be legal information, and it's going to be legal opinion. What, in my opinion, you know, and I could say what I've seen judges do, and I can tell you that my experience is I went to law school in California, so I know some California law. I practiced in Texas, I practiced in New York, and I'm licensed in the District of Columbia. But I practice a lot in federal court, so I know a lot of the different states, and I also have had readership that's all over the United States and all over the world. And while I really don't touch international law, and I did take international law in law school, I can tell you how a lot of judges respond in the various jurisdictions where I've practiced. Now, California, Texas, and New York and the District of Columbia might seem very different, but they're really not. I mean, there's a lot of similarities. So if you're asking me a question, like my boyfriend and I, we moved into this apartment 4 years ago, and he wants me out. He's giving me 72 hours to get out. He's going to throw all my stuff in the street. I can say to you, that is, if your name is on the lease, that's an illegal lockout. He cannot do it. And somebody will say, well, I want to get out. And it's like, okay, you want to get out, but don't give up your rights. Like, if you need more time, take it. The other thing that I talk about in the relationship court videos is make sure that you take pictures of everything that you have. And if you're the person who's staying, I know that a lot of times people don't want you to touch their stuff. And I've had people who have said, this person left and they told me not to touch their stuff. Well, if they just left and you don't know if they're coming back, you have the right to pack up their stuff. But what I suggest people do is take photographs of it. This is your stuff. This is a photograph. This is me putting it in a box, you know, videotape it if you can. Have a friend come over and videotape you doing all this, taping it up, putting it in the side. Now, if they come in, and I talk about this on the video, if they come in, they say, oh, I had a diamond ring and I had a laptop computer, and that's baloney. I mean, if anybody has a diamond ring and a laptop computer, they're going to take that stuff with them, and judges don't fall for that. So a judge is most likely going to say, let me see the receipt for the diamond ring and the laptop. And why don't you take the laptop? I mean, that's crazy to walk out a relationship and not take a laptop. I mean, there's certain things that just don't make any sense. So I tell people, when somebody's trying to sue you, I had, and I always use like the Michael Jordan footwear, because I had a case one time where this guy kept claiming that he had like 10 pair of special Jordans, and his wife either threw them out or sold them or whatever, and he wanted all of them. And so the judge said, let me see the receipts. And he didn't have any receipts because he didn't have 10 Jordans, and she's like, I think he had one, and he took it with him. So it's like, if it's a pair of sneakers, take it with you. Anything that you can carry or you should carry, like a laptop computer, the judge is going to say, why didn't you take it with you? I mean, it doesn't make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, it's not true. And that's how most judges work. So on the podcast, like I do in that video, and I also talk about engagement rings, in most jurisdictions, an engagement ring is a gift given in contemplation of marriage. It's consideration for a contract. If the contract doesn't go through, the engagement ring goes back to the person who paid for it, hopefully the man, or if it's two people in a relationship and they exchanged engagement rings, maybe both get to keep them. But the law on the books is an engagement ring is a gift given in contemplation of marriage. If the marriage is off, the engagement ring goes back. Now, if you paid for your own engagement ring, you can keep it, but you should thank your lucky stars that you're out of that. I mean, nobody should be paying for their own engagement ring unless you're buying, sort of commitment rings for each other. So on the podcast, I'll talk about things like that, things that I talk about on the video. That's pretty standard across the board. It's not legal advice. It's legal information. It's legal opinion from what I've seen as an attorney over 14 years that I've been licensed in 4 different jurisdictions, and all the people that I've spoken to and how things go. And another thing that people go crazy when I say it, and I just feel very deeply sometimes for single moms. But when you're a single mom and you're not collecting child support, that's your child's money. And I know the courts can be scary. I know the judges can be scary. I know the process can be scary. But most states make it very easy to file for child support without a lawyer, without going to court, without standing in front of a judge. It's usually an administrative hearing. And I have seen it evolve over the years where judges have said, this is your child's money that your child is entitled to. You have no right to say, we don't need it or I don't want it. If you have a duty to your child to raise that child in the best circumstances possible. And if you're not getting all the child support that you should be getting, you're doing that child a disfavor. So if you can say, like, I contribute $1,000 a month to my household, and my ex is supposed to pay $150 a week, and he never pays it, and I don't go after it. So that's basically $600 a month that if you don't have anything that you can spend it on your child, some clothes, some medical expenses, you can put it in an account for them to go to college. Many times, and I've seen this evolve over the years, and I know that especially in very progressive states where there's very activist judges, and you'll be surprised to know that Texas is in that mix. California and New York, people are like, yeah, I get that, California and New York, but Texas is in that mix as well. The judges are fairly sophisticated in Texas. And I've seen in all these jurisdictions, judges say that not collecting child support is child neglect, and they will hold it against the parent. And right now, most states are moving to try to give parents equal time with the children. So you want as many points in your column. If that doesn't work for you, if having your children split 50-50 is not going to work for you, and you want to fight for, an 80-20 split or 90-10 split or something, you're going to have to go into court and you're going to have to show the judge why you're the better parent and why you should have most of the custody, the primary physical custody. And the judge will look at different factors. They'll look at where you live. They look at what you do. They look at how much time you spend with the kids, all kinds of things. Has there ever been any, CPS involvement, all this other stuff. But they will take like a weight and they will figure out how much you have been, this terrific parent. And most single moms, and I was a single mom for a long time, work very hard, do right by their kids. And a lot of times they're just scared of the system. But the judge wants to make sure that you are advocating for your child and you're getting everything that your child deserves. And that includes child support. So I tell women all the time, because I've seen it. I've seen it happen in real life. I've seen judges say, if you are not collecting child support that your child is entitled to, it's your child's money, it's not your money. If you're not collecting that money, that can be construed as neglectful parenting. And there are some judges that just go crazy about this. So that's the kind of stuff I let people know. And I know that mothers who are afraid of collecting child support or think that, I don't know what to do, I can't afford a lawyer, you don't need a lawyer. Most states have a child support enforcement agency where you can go and you can get an administrative hearing all by yourself. They will get in touch with your ex. They will find out where your ex works, how much they make, and they will fashion together a child support order, and then they'll enforce it. And you're done. You're done. And then if your ex wants to sue you for custody, because many times when people are not paying child support, and you come with a child support order, the first thing they say, I'm suing for custody, I'm suing for custody, I'm suing for custody, I'm suing for custody. It's a bunch of bluster. It's basically what I've seen is to get you to back down. It's usually a bunch of nonsense. But you still have to go and get the child support for your children. And I know that it's hard, but I tell parents all the time, you don't want to be standing in front of a judge and saying, I didn't get child support for my children. Because there are some judges who will just lose it about that. So please, 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 so this is the kind of information that I'll be giving on the podcast. It's not legal advice. I will say, if I were your attorney, we would be talking child support like out of the gate. But I'm not your attorney. But I do know the court system, and I do know how judges work, and I do know how this whole support custody visitation thing is evolving. And I know that when they look at factors on who deserves how much visitation, whether or not you're collecting child support and you're collecting as much as you deserve, and that you're going for an increase however many years that your state allows, some are 2, some are 3, that is going to be weighed in with a lot of judges. There are some judges that, are out in left field. So, not everything that I say pertains to every judge in every case. But I've just seen this happening more and more and more over the years. So I'll tell people that. I was like, please, please, please go to the administrative agency, the child support enforcement in your state. And states like California, I worked for the Family Law Facilitator's Office. They are terrific. They'll write all the motions for you. You can go there and say, help me, and they'll help you. A lot of states have family law facilitators, and other states, I know Massachusetts, it's like all you have to do is show up there, and they are really tough on people that owe support. So I will always, always encourage people to go get that support. You don't want to be in a position where a judge is saying to you, why are you withholding this money from your children? Because it's going to make you feel horrible, and you have a tough enough job being a single parent, and you don't need that. So I tell people, I know it's hard, I know it's scary, but please, please, please do it. And I know the people who are paying child support and are non-custodial parents, they hate me when I say it, but it's like, you should be paying your child support. I mean, I say it in my books, like you should be paying your child support. What's the big deal? So anyway, that's the level of legal advice legal information, legal opinion. This is what I've seen, that kind of thing over the years. So if you have a question like that, just let me know. And I don't know the laws and the statutes in every state, but I know a lot of them, and I could always look something up. And I could always look at a judge's opinions, anything that's published, and, kind of give you the lay of the land, what I'm seeing from that judge, if you know what judge you're going to be in front of. So I will answer questions like that. So don't be shy. You can ask me questions. But now I'm going to get to, so that was a questions from the questions post. It was basically a one-sentence question asking if I'm going to be talking on legal topics. So anyway, here is a letter from 2006, and it's not published on the blog, but it's very common. So it says, I broke up with my ex because he did not treat me well at all. The problem is that he went on as if nothing happened. He started seeing someone about 3 days after we broke up. His behavior is just bizarre, and I'm grieving our relationship. I miss it, and even though he mistreated me, and even though I had to break it off, I miss him, or I miss who he was in the beginning. He's partying on like I didn't even exist, like our relationship wasn't even a thing. And he has a new and very pretty girlfriend. I'm so angry. How can he just move on like this? I don't get it, and it upsets me so. It's been weeks, and instead of feeling better, I feel angrier and crazier. I know how this feels. And, as I said in the first podcast, my ex moved on, the night that I threw him out, or the night he stormed out, I had a feeling he went to somebody's house, that he worked with. And I wasn't quite sure what was going on, but I was deep in denial. But he never grieved our relationship. He went on like nothing happened. But I remember, even the night he got married, he brought the kids home because even though he got married that day, it was the one time in our entire history that I changed weekends with him. And I didn't expect him to bring them home that night. I thought that somebody would bring them to me the next day. So he comes in. Now, this is a man who got married a few hours before. He comes in, and I had a lot of our knickknacks. We had gone to Cape Cod a lot. We had gone on whale watching before it became a big thing. And we had brass whales and dolphins and all these little trinkets, of our journeys up to Cape Cod. And they were really nice vacations. And I continued on, with the dolphins and the whales, and I brought the kids whale watching and things like that. So I kept all this stuff. I mean, I didn't think two things about it, really. And he moved into her house, right after we split up. So he didn't need to bring all the stuff, and I needed, a household worth of stuff. So he comes in, and he looks at all of the stuff on the top of the bookcases, and he goes, "My childhood." I was like, my head was like, what? What? And over the years, he would make comments like that, which told me he never grieved our relationship. He just toddled off with somebody else. And over the years, his life got smaller and smaller and narrower because he was running from the pain, and he didn't have anywhere to run to, really. When I talk about doing your grief work, as you're doing in this letter, grief makes our life larger. when you are doing your grief work, it hurts like anything. And it's really hard when you're crying every day and you, for some reason, are understanding what your ex is doing. And that's a whole other topic that I'll put aside for right now. But you're doing the right thing and your ex is not doing the right thing. Your ex is basically sidestepping the grief. And I call it one-level Joe. And one-level Joe means that he's a person who only operates on one level. He's not going to delve deeply into his issues. He's not going to look into his psyche and figure out what's wrong with him. Why didn't the relationship work? He's not going to do any grief work because he can't. He's just incapable of handling it. He wants to cover over any feelings that I'm sure are bubbling up. Grief, loss, anger, hurt, whatever. He has to ratchet it up. He has to party on and get like the new pretty girlfriend because he's going to take something that monumental to cover his grief because he's going to be on the run. And you can be on the run your entire life and never ever come to terms with the things that you have lost. And one of the things that I talk about in Getting Past Your Breakup, and I've talked about all these many years, is society never teaches us that grieving the end of a relationship, even if the relationship was bad, even if the person mistreated you, you still have to grieve that loss. You still have to feel the anger, the hurt, the pain, the anxiety. You dream about them. You're a nervous wreck. You're disorganized. You're confused. That's all symptoms of grief. But you're grieving and you're putting it behind you. You are going to be healing while he's out partying and he's not healing. He bore no consequences of you ending the relationship. And that's what you're angry about. Like you wanted to end the relationship and get him to see that he hurt you and he did not behave correctly. And he's not seeing that because he's just moving on. You might think that he owes you an apology. He should at least feel sorry for what he did to you. And he's not doing any of that. So I'm sure that that is really tapping into your anger. So you are having all these feelings that are really hard and they really hurt. And, grief comes over you like a tidal wave in the early days. It just feels like it's going to knock you over and drag you out to sea. But grief ends. Know it and bank on it. And I'm going to do future podcasts on just grief and grieving. But know that you're doing the right thing, even though you're basically holed up with your grief over a person who mistreated you. He was the bad actor, and he just toddled off into the sunset with new pretty young girlfriend. And you're thinking, what's wrong with this picture? And it's exactly. But people who are bad actors, they are incapable of looking at themselves. When I did psychiatric evaluations, it was called lack of personal insight. And when you have somebody who really is difficult and mistreats you and then just toddles off, it's because they lack personal insight. I mean, they don't want to look at their behavior because the behavior was so horrific. So one of the things that you need to do is detach from what he's doing because it really doesn't have anything to do with you. It has to do with his inability to go deeper. He's one-level Joe. And just know that he's going to be on the run and he might be on the run forever. But you're going to grieve this. You're going to feel your hurt. You're going to feel your anger. You're going to feel your anxiety. You're going to feel your confusion. All of the different things that you feel with grief. Journal about them. Write about them. Join the Facebook group. People are so supportive. And I don't know how you're finding all these things out about your ex, but you need to be no contact. That's really, really important. And in future episodes, I'm going to talk about, the public breakup on social media because it's really difficult when we've put all these pictures up and here we are, the happy couple, we're going to the Grand Canyon, we're going to Hawaii, we're going to Australia, and then all of a sudden it stops and you're single, status single. It's really difficult. And then his Facebook page is, oh, here's my pretty little girlfriend. Everything is wonderful. Life is grand. And you're like, what the hell? Like, he's the one who was so badly behaved. How is this happening? You have to stay out of his head and you have to stay out of his heart because he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And he's putting on a show and he's running from his grief and it's not real. And the girlfriend has no idea what she just got herself into, but she will find out. You have to understand that Stephen Levine said that people who deal with their grief, who feel their grief, are the happiest and lightest of beings. And that's because when you heal your grief, when you heal all your unresolved losses, and you might be feeling other losses that you didn't resolve before. And so when you're ready, you do the relationship inventory and getting past your breakup, and then you could do your life inventory and you can look at your other relationships and see if you grieved them at the end. So you're on this path to resolve these losses and to feel your grief once and for all, to feel as bad as you really feel. And that's a lot of work. And I suggest to everybody that you do self-care. If you read and Getting Past Your Breakup, grief is hard. It's really, really hard. You have to take breaks. You have to do your affirmations. You have to engage in self-care. And you have to spend like at least one night a week doing nothing that has to do with self-help, nothing that has to do with grief, something taking care of you. I used to do it on Thursday nights and Sunday mornings. Those were my time to not deal with any of this. And you can't grieve. You can't continue to grieve if you're not doing self-care. It really, really is important. Feel your feelings. Know that it ends. Know that you will end and you will heal. And you will do your relationship inventory. You will write your goodbye letter. You will move on. You will look at your life inventory. You will see if any other relationships need to be grieved. You will heal and you will move on. And when you move on, you will not have any of this baggage that one level Joe is dragging around with him. You will not have that baggage. You will have left that behind. When you're doing your relationship inventory, think about your standards and compatibility inventory from Getting Back Out There. And I always suggest that people do them together. Because when you do your relationship inventory, you're going to write all the negative things about your ex and what you didn't like. And now you're going to put it in your standards list of, I'm not going to put up with this. And I tell people, do that list long before you're ready to date because you have to commit to it. If you do your work, and it sounds like that's what you're doing, you come out on the other side. It's going to be a while. And you're going to start dating and realize that you've been alone. If you haven't done a standards and compatibility inventory, you're going to fall for a cute smile and a warm hug, and you're going to be off to the races. You really have to figure out who is the person that's going to be the person for you. And people know that I have something called the 3 a.m. person. This is the person you want. Well, not this person. You want to envision who you need at 3 a.m. So I always say, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. It's thunder and lightning out. The roof is leaking. The baby is crying. The dog wants to go out, but the dog's afraid of the thunder. What do? So you want the partner that's going to say, you get the baby, I'll put a pan under the roof, I'll take the dog out, I'll get the dog out there, and, we'll get through this together. You don't want somebody who's going to say, I told you to fix that, I told you to call somebody about that roof. Every time, there's always those people where every time something happens, they have to blame somebody. It's somebody's fault. Life doesn't just happen. It's always somebody's fault. I told you, to call somebody about that roof. I told you I didn't want that dog. I told you, we should insulate the baby's room so they don't hear thunder and lightning. Whatever. Or there's the baby, who can't handle it. Like, oh, this is way too much for me. I'm out the door. there's a lot of shades of those two types of people that you don't want. You want the 3 a.m. person who's like, we got this. Together, we got this. Anyway, you want somebody who's going to be there for you. Now, when I talk about, the baby and the dog and the house, that might not be your 3 a.m. scenario. You might want somebody who travels the world with you. You might want somebody who's going to go into business with you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be 3 a.m. You want somebody who's going to rise up to the level of the partner you need when you need it. There are many things that happen in life. People who are incapable of dealing with it, and it sounds like your ex is one of those people, they will cut and run, or they'll blame you, or they'll make you miserable, or you have to clean up the mess. You want the person who's going to say, we got this. And I remember, we went through hell with Michael's ex with child support when we were together. I mean, I never, ever complained to him about what was going on. We got a lawyer. We dealt with it because she was in Massachusetts. We were in California. My son was in a near fatal assault. I went to Massachusetts and brought him back to California. We had all these medical bills. He never said to me, he's 22. We shouldn't be paying these medical bills. We just paid them. There were so many things that happened, but our relationship was a happy place to be. And we each had our own hobbies, interests, and friends. So when I went out with my friends, I did my hobbies. I had my interests. I had school. He had fishing. He had NASCAR. I mean, we both had things that the other one was totally uninterested in. So I filled myself up, and then I came back to the relationship, a fulfilled and happy person, as did he. Our relationship was a springboard into those things in our life that we wanted to do with our lives. And it was also a shelter in the storm. When things went wrong, when the ex is suing us for child support, kind of manipulating the system and keep telling us that his daughter's continuing in college when we knew clearly she wasn't. He was so hurt because his ex was putting his daughter in the middle of it, and his daughter was blaming him, and he was losing the relationship with his daughter. There was no way in that situation, as much as the lawyer was costing me, and I was in law school, so I couldn't really help anything. As much as the lawyer was costing me, we had to pay him. We're across the country, and this needed to stop. It was ridiculous. And when my son got hurt, I had to go get him and bring him back. It was a strain on the family finances. All his medical bills was a strain on the family finances. He never said to me, he's 22, he should be dealing with this himself. We dealt with it, and there were many other things. We went through the death of a dog and the death of a cat, and, eventually we went through Michael's illness. We were always on the same team. Our relationship was both a springboard to the rest of our lives and a shelter from the storm. That's what you're looking for. But you need to know what that 3 a.m. person looks like. It might be the guy with the baby and the dog and the house and the roof. It might be somebody, that you're hiking the Alps with. It might be somebody that you're going into business with. What do you do when you go into business and, somebody that you've hired as a manager is stealing all the money? Do you blame each other, or do you, work it out and you decide as a team how we're going to deal with this? If you want to travel the world, are you going to fight about, I want to spend 10 months on a sailboat, and you want to go, climb Mount Everest? I mean, those are two very different things. You want somebody who's going to say, okay, this is what we want to do. This is how we plan. This is what we, how it goes. You want the partner for you. Now, the only way you get there, the absolutely only way you get there is you do your relationship inventory. You decide what you want and what you don't want, because most people have no idea. They get over a relationship, or they're not even over a relationship yet, and they're out there dating, and somebody comes along and they just look good and they're kind of funny and they're charming, and there you go. That's all you need. It has to be more than that. You have to learn how to ask questions. You have to go to getting back out there, and you have to look at communication styles. You have to look at dysfunctional communication. If your ex mistreated you, chances are there was a lot of dysfunctional and destructive communication in that relationship. So you have to learn what healthy communication looks like in your relationship. And you have to weed people out. You have to pay attention. How do they talk to wait staff? How do they talk to the family? What's going on? Do they owe, back child support? Do they owe DUI? Do they have a DUI? I mean, what do you want in a person? What's a red flag? What's okay, nice to know you, see you later? If somebody said to me, I haven't paid my child support in 2 years and I have a DUI, I'd be like, see you later. I wouldn't be lending him money to get out of this situation, which is what a lot of people do. And then they go, I'm a nice person. No, you're not a nice person. You're a fool. If you want to help somebody, go to an animal rescue, go to a homeless shelter and serve soup. You don't find project people and try to lift them up out of the gutter, because I'll tell you, those people have absolutely no gratitude for what you're going to do. If you were in a relationship where you were being mistreated and you had to end it, you obviously know, I don't want to be mistreated. But what does it look like? And what did you miss as a red flag prior to that? So use this breakup as an opportunity to feel your feelings, to resolve all your unresolved grief, to look at all your losses, and to craft in your mind, who do I need as a partner? What is this person going to look like? When you know that, you will act on that, and that will be in your heart of hearts. And you will be able to go out into the world, and you'll be able to date and go next. Nope, not you, maybe you. And you might go into a few temporary relationships. You might go into a few short-lived relationships. You might date around a while. But you have your standards and your compatibility inventory before you get there. Figure out what it is you want to do when you're out there. And are you going to be serious as soon as you get out there? I mean, some people just want to kind of have a good time, want to go out and dance. I don't want to get into a relationship right now. After you're over the grief hump, after you've started your relationship inventory, you might be like, I just want to go out and dance and have a good time, have some drinks with some people and, call it a day. I know somebody who felt like she was really broken up. She was really broken up over a breakup, and she cried and cried and cried. And then one weekend she went out dancing with her friends, and they went to this bar down in the Greenwich Village, and she met this young guy. I mean, she was like in her early 40s, and the guy was like in his late 20s, very good looking guy. He wanted to take her home in a cab. Now, she was not going to invite him in because she had kids, and that was her standard. I mean, she wasn't going to do a one-night stand with a guy she just met. But they made out in the cab all the way from the Village to the Upper East Side. She came alive from that one night. Like the spring was back in her step. Write about her in getting back out there. Sometimes that's what you need. You need a night to kind of go crazy. You're not ready for a relationship, but you want somebody to flirt with, to let you know that you're attractive, that kind of thing. But you're going to be fine, and One Level Joe is not going to be fine. Do your grief work, do your inventories, figure out what your 3 a.m. person looks like, set your standards, and then go build a life. And make sure that you don't give up that life when you get into a relationship. And make sure that that relationship is a springboard to your hobbies, interests, and friends that you engage in separate and apart from your partner, and he's got his own things. And it's also a shelter from the storm. When something happens, whether it's all about him or it's all about you, no matter what, you pull in together, you grab the reins, and you say, Hun, we got this. We got this. The guy that you just broke up with, One Level Joe, is incapable of that. Incapable of that. You dodged a bullet. And thank the heavens that you did. You're going to be fine. He's not. For anybody out there who's looking at the same situation, know that the ex that toddles off is not in a great place, but he doesn't even know it. And he's so busy acting, with the pretty young thing that he thinks, hey, I got this. But he does not. You are the one that has it. So do your grief work. Do your self-care, because if you don't do your self-care, you cannot get through the end of grief. Do your inventories, do your standards and compatibility. Craft your 3 a.m. person, and then go have a good time. You can do this. This is Susan Elliott, Mean Lady Talking, signing off. Remember, you can do this. Take care, all.